Hey guys, how we doing tonight? Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully video is working. Been a while since I set this up, so hopefully it's working correctly. Let's see if we can read some comments. Should have moved my camera out of the way and then I could read the comments. That'd been smart, wouldn't it? Let's just shrink down my window and then stretch it. Now we can see comments. Although, there, that's much brighter. Let's see. Let's see. Fred asked, have a 2004 WRX, got 100,000 miles on it. Smelling fuel in the oil. I know it's due for a refresh. What's the source? Likely you are running too rich and excessive fuel is getting past the rings into the oil. If it was a newer direct fuel injection vehicle, I'd say it'd be oil dilution from the DI system. They've had a lot of issues in Hondas primarily. I don't know if Subaru's having oil dilution issues with fuel getting into the oil due to the DI running a little too rich or the rings not sealing, one of the two. But it could be that, but with 100,000 miles, I wouldn't think the rings would be warm enough to really worry with it unless it was an issue with an oxygen sensor or air fuel ratio sensor in the WRX causing it to dump fuel. You know, check the plugs, see how they look, see if they're dark. Any other codes, check engine light on, anything like that, that would lead you to think that the engine was running rich or dumping fuel and causing oil dilution, dumping too much fuel in the oil, or too much in the combustion chamber getting past the rings and into the oil. One other quick question. I was driving on the interstate this weekend and I've noticed it before that above 90 miles an hour, my 2020 STI tends to float a little bit in curves. Any issue what that could be on a 2020 model? Floating in curves above 90 miles an hour. How tight are these curves and where are you driving 90 miles an hour legally on roads? Cost effective solution, thank you, advance. I hear and see you. Okay, good to know that's working. Let's see if we got some more questions coming in. Super chat from CP. Thanks, man. I appreciate the $5. Guys, if I'm a little bit out of it tonight, a little stressed running back and forth between my brother's house with some plumbing issues he's got and my mother's house with plumbing issues she's got where her plumbing is backed up into the house. So likely going to have a plumber out to snake her drain tomorrow. And my brother's got a leaking water line under his bathroom and has caused some rot in the bathroom wall. So got lots of projects coming up that don't involve turning a wrench. Let's see if we missed any questions back up here before CP Super Chat. Ooh, blackout in Texas. Hopefully you got your phone charged somehow because you must if you're seeing me. Michael, you got a question? Just go ahead and ask it in the chat and hopefully I can get to you and everyone else's questions tonight. Do a video on heated seats in 03 Baja. What specifically, are you swapping heated seats or are your heated seats not working? Should be the same for any 2000 to 2004 Legacy Outback or the 2003 to 2005 Baja. Don't look confused. Join. Howdy. Let's see. What do you think of the FB25 engines? I really have not worked on enough of them to come to any kind of consensus on them. I know that they do not have the head gasket issues that the EJ series did. They are a little bit more aggravating to work on, but also less maintenance than the EJs. You don't have to replace your timing belt like the EJs. You don't have to worry about your water pump and timing belt being on the same system since it's an external water pump now on a serpentine belt. But you do have to worry with the issues with the valve springs, but Subaru recalled those and fixed those. You had to worry about the issue, well, a continuing issue where the F-Series engine has much more surface area for oil to leak. The entire timing cover, the cam carriers, they're more prone to oil leaks just because there's more sealing surface that oil needs to be sealed compared to the EJ series. But overall, they've proven to be as reliable as the EJs were, and haven't really had any one main Achilles heel kind of issue like the EJs did, the non-turbo EJs had with their head gasket issue. Yes, we are taking, I say we, me, yes, I'm taking questions in the chats. Flying Monk. 2000 Forester XT, just rebuilt the engine. But when I drive, but when car is in drive reverse with brake pedal pressed in, there's a vibration. Check mounts, check engine light on, anything like that. You just rebuilt it, so I'd assume new plugs, new all of that. So it shouldn't have any drivability issues like that. But first thing I would check is transmission, engine mounts, things of that nature. I noticed on my 2002 Outback, I had an issue where I would get shaking when I put it in reverse first thing in the morning and backed up, and found out that it was a broken transmission mount, which we did a video on, I believe, year and a half ago on replacing that transmission mount that was broken. And my chat just jumped on me again. Let me see if we can get where we were at. Muscle and imports. 2000 Impreza. If I leave the hose, that's on the manifold to the fuel pressure regulator. My car feels slow and has lag. When I disconnect that hose, it feels better and idles around 750. If I leave the hose, that's on the manifold to the fuel pressure regulator in my car. Are you seeing any fuel at that hose? A lot of times when a fuel pressure regulator goes bad, inside of that regulator is a rubber diaphragm, and the vacuum hose pulls on that rubber diaphragm, and sometimes that rubber diaphragm can get a pinhole leak or rupture and start leaking fuel into the vacuum chamber, and then the engine will start sucking that fuel through that vacuum chamber into the intake manifold, causing it to run rough. It can cause it to stumble and choke it down. So I would check to see if you have a leaking or failed fuel pressure regulator. Easiest way to tell is pull the hose off, smell for gas in the vacuum line and in the top of the regulator. Secondary way to check it is if you have a handheld vacuum pump, is to apply vacuum to it and see if it will hold vacuum, or see if when you apply vacuum, if it'll pull fuel into the handheld pump. And Sherbert decided he was going to join me, apparently. Jumped up here on my lap, so hopefully he'll lay down and be good. Yeah, I didn't plan to. We've got I got some local contractor friends that have recommended a local plumber. What do you think of the FB25 Forester? We kind of just talked about the FB25. Trying to add power to a FB20 cross-track, fool's errand. Yes. Just keep it maintained and drive it. If you want something quicker, you know, look at maybe a newer cross-track with the 25, or you know, perhaps an Outback or Forester XT or something of that nature. Honestly, the amount of money you would put into a Crosstracks FB20 to see any noticeable gain in performance is really not going to be worth it in the long run. And there's not that much aftermarket support for parts. Stop sniffing my microphone, buddy. Let me move that up. Stop. Sorry, guys. Hopefully you're not hearing him batting at this thing. You're going to have to get down if you're going to be bad. All right. Sorry about that. Let's see. Any way of slowing oil leak from the heads on an EJ253? Not really. Monitor it. Keep the oil level where it needs to be. And, you know, just plan on that head gasket replacement sooner than later, because there's not really any kind of oil stop leak that you can put into it to make that stop leaking. It's metal to metal, the head and the block. Then you have your head gasket in there that's metal. All those oil stop leaks, the way they work, or 90% of them the way they work, is they are formulated to go in, and they have a little bit of a solvent of some sort that when it comes into contact with seals like a rear main seal, a cam seal, something of that nature that's rubber, or a Viton seal or something like that, it causes those seals to swell up, the chemical additive in the stop leak, and that's what is supposed to keep it from leaking. But that kind of additive will not work with a head gasket leak, because the principle of it working on swelling the seals will not work on a metal head gasket and metal head. So stop leak's not going to work, and there's nothing really you can do to slow it down. Hopefully it's not dripping. Hopefully it's just seeping. If it's at the drip point, you probably need to go ahead and pretty quickly set up a time to get that replacement done, because the more you drive it, the more you're going to have to constantly check the oil. And you slip up one time and run it low, that could be the engine, wipe out a bearing. So yeah, unfortunately not much you can do in that position other than fix it. Hey John, good evening. Robert Ever here of Legacy GT Wheel Bearing Thump. Haven't heard of them thumping, but I've seen plenty of them fail in basically all the generations. I'm assuming rear. Easiest way to diagnose them is if you have a lift, of course. Always drive them on the lift and then go around with the stethoscope and listen near the hub. Easiest way to see if they've got noise in them. Alternative to that would be to lift the car, put it on 4 jack stands, get under it. Again, not the safest route, being on jack stands and you crawling around under it or rolling around under it on a creeper compared to a traditional shop lift. But that's the other easiest way to figure it out. From there, you're kind of just driving it, or having someone drive it while you sit in the back of the car and listen. That's not always the most accurate way to do it. You can go on a back road somewhere and steer it pretty aggressively back and forth at 30-40 mile an hour, safely with no one around. And normally you can at least tell if it's right or left side, depending on the weight transfer of the car, loading the bearings, and which side is making the noise. Normally you can hear front or back from that, but again, the easiest way is with a mechanic stethoscope with it up in the air. Let's see, Mike, 2004 Forester XT. I think we just did yours, the XT that was vibrating after the rebuild. Again, check engine mounts and transmission mounts starting, and work from there based on what you see. Is it normal for the boost to fluctuate? 2020 WRX, it jumps between 16 and 19 psi back and forth when boost. Only 4,000 miles, thanks. I noticed that on my 2019 WRX that sometimes it would pull higher boost, sometimes it would pull lower boost. Not too terribly sure how accurate the factory boost gauge is. It could be some discrepancy in the factory boost gauge. It could be the difference in temperature, ambient temperature. Sometimes when it is colder and the air is more dense, it will pull a little bit more boost than if it's warm. That might have something to do with it. But that's still, man, he wants to get back up here. That's still within the normal realm for the factory turbocharger and factory boost rating on the stock tune. It idles at 500 RPM if the hose is connected to the fuel pump, fuel pressure regulator. I changed leaky hose and new fuel pump. Were you changed the leaky hose? What hose? The vacuum hose to the regulator, or a leaking fuel line, a supply return line? Chap jumped on me again. Thank you, John, for the $5. Really appreciate it. I think we got another super chat to look at. Sorry, guys, those take precedence. Slammin' Z, thank you for the $5. Where to find the metal grid wall for 04 Outback wagon? Oh my God, like they use a police car. Metal grid wall. I I honestly don't know if that exists. I know that they had a Sherbet, stop. I know they had like a dog cage as a Subaru genuine accessory that went between the hatch area and the back of the back seat, and it was just like a mesh divider for putting your dogs in the back. But I don't know about an actual. Knock my microphone off. I might have to put you up. You're being a bad cat. Quit that. But I don't know about an actual wall. It might be something you'd have to have custom made for the vehicle. I don't know of anyone that like sells that. And thank you for Clean Team of New York. Thank you for the $10. Number 1 and number 3 spark plug wire are stuck, broken onto the plug in chamber 1. I cannot remove tool that with cannot remove tool that is within the chamber. What do I do? Thanks. Can't remove the tool that's in the chamber. You got the spark plug socket in there on top of the let's see, spark plug wires are stuck, broken onto the plug. So the actual bottom piece, what are we working on here? Is this a turbo 2.5 or is this like a I'm assuming plug wire would be a single overhead cam 2.5 or a 2.2. Since a turbo car would have a coil pack with a coil boot. Normally what I do in that situation, I've got a pair of Mac needle nose pliers or a hose grip plier. So the jaws come to a circular point, and I can usually slide those in there and grab and start ripping apart the boot, pulling it out. Or you can take a what do you call it? Utility knife. One with the DeWalt makes one that's really thin with the long break-off blades. Normally you can take that and run that down in there and just cut the boot, and you got to hack it into pieces and pull it out piece by piece. Long needle nose pliers, regular needle nose pliers, 90 degree, 45 degree, any of those are hose grip pliers. Normally it's a tedious task, but normally you got to break them up, cut them up, and get them out of there. So you can get your spark plug socket on there to pull the plugs. Yeah, it's not a fun scenario either way. So you're either gonna have to take it out in chunks or cut it out or whatever. But you know, it is doable. Sometimes if you've got the back part where the wire goes in, the flat piece where the wire goes in, part of it, if you can rip that off and you can see the actual spark plug, sometimes you can take a little pocket screwdriver and run it between the porcelain of the spark plug and the boot to break that seal where it's stuck on there, and that'll help get the rest of the pieces off of it. Let's see, we've got one more super chat, and we'll try to get back to where we left off. Cruising Max for $5. Thank you so much. Hey, diagnosing a 2002 WRX P0131. Ohms between ECU and sensor connector is 4.4 ohms on pin 19. Please help. Let's see. P0131. Is that the IAC issue? Google will hurry up. That's oxygen sensor circuit low. I think I did a video on P031 on a WRX in the past. Can't remember now though. Let's see if I did. I thought I did, but it's not coming up on Google search. Let's see. Let's stick a pin in that real quick. I'm going to get the service manual pulled up here on the other side and see if we can get the flow chart going and come back to that. If I can remember where my service manuals are on the computer. It's in my Dropbox. Let's get that pulled over there. Let's jump back to where we were at, or close enough to it. And grab a couple more questions. Check engine on, air sensor mass. Tested mass sensor giving me fine. What could it be else? 99 Outback. What's the codes for the check engine light? It says you check the mass air sensor. I'm assuming it was a mass air sensor code, but which one specifically did you have there? I see Adam. Signs to look for. That it's time to replace struts. I hear occasional pops over bumps going up driveway. Pull the boots back, the dust boot at the top of the strut shock assembly. See if you see any leakage. Normally, if they're leaking, past time to replace them. Other than that, if you're at 165,000 miles and you've not replaced them, I'd say go ahead and replace them. They're past due anyway with that mileage, but not knowing how long you've had it or what the last time it was serviced, I'd check for leaks and go from there. The pop you hear over bumps, it could be a ball joint, it could be a sway bar and link, but likely it could be a strut as well. So, get under there and get to looking. That's basically the easiest way to figure it out. Is normally if you've got an issue with the suspension, putting eyes on it, put the pry bar, in between the control arm and the spindle, checking for play in the ball joints, shaking the tire at 3 and 9, see if there's any wiggle in it. We'll show you if you got some wear in the tie rods, things of that nature. So pretty easy to get under there and figure out normally where your issue is in your suspension. Let's see. I have a 2005 Forester non-turbo. I need to reseal the engine, time belt, water pump, etc. Basically the whole shebang. What other work should I do while the engine's out? Rear main seal, reseal the oil air separator plate. That would be part of the reseal. It's 2005 non-turbo. Depending on the mileage, if you haven't upgraded the head gaskets to the MLS gaskets, I would go ahead and do that now, because if the factory gaskets haven't failed on you yet, they will probably as soon as you get it back together, just if you have the luck like I do. No engine lights on, runs like a top. You're going to have it on the lift tomorrow. I don't remember what you'd asked me now, Mike. Unfortunately, the vibration in the Forester. That's right. Let's see, more questions on the 4th gen Forester. Tends to have soft brakes even with new pads and rotors. Has been told that it's either the master cylinder moving or it might need a bleed. Is your brake fluid black? Is it dark? If it is, go ahead and flush it out. Bleed all the brakes. Check from there. The master cylinder moving, I know they had an issue on some of the earlier WRXs. I thought that was the I thought that was the master cylinder for the clutch, where it was the firewall was thin or something, and they'd sell like a bracket that braces that in. I don't think they had an issue with the brake master. I think it was the clutch master. You could have a weak master cylinder. There could be leaking. Normally, to check those, you'd look under the dash around the pedals. Look up, look at the brake pedal, find where the rod goes from the brake pedal through the firewall, and there should be a rubber grommet with that rod where it goes through. Normally, if the master cylinder is going out and it's leaking, you'll see some brake fluid running down the firewall inside, or no, scratch that. You take the nuts loose on either side of the master cylinder, slide it forward off of the brake booster, and see if there's any brake fluid in there. Thinking of older vehicles, looking at the firewall for a leak. But yeah, you take the 2 nuts on either side of the brake master cylinder, slide it forward, and see if it's wet with brake fluid at the back, where the rod from the brake booster goes in the back of the master. Hey, Tim. Let's see. I need my valve body replaced by the dealer. Now when driving, it sounds like metal clanging when accelerating, and it shudders. No issues before that. Oh, you had your valve body replaced. what year model, what vehicle was it? A TR690 or TR580 CVT? I'm assuming it's a CVT. Having your valve body replaced, I don't know what I would metal clanging when accelerating. If it had been your torque converter replaced, I would say that likely they left the bolts from the torque converter to the flex plate loose, and the flex plate and torque converter are beating against the bolts. I have seen that before, but if they just changed the valve body, I don't know what they could have done in changing just the valve body that would make a metal clanging sound, unless it was a, well, even if it was a TR690 equipped transmission. When they dropped the pan, they shouldn't have had to touch any of the exhaust. That's the only thing I can think of is they left maybe the exhaust loose, or broke a heat shield on the exhaust and it was clanging. I'm not sure. I would, one, if it was, if it started when the dealership performed the service, take it back to the dealership. They need to fix it, make it right, because apparently something they did caused it. It'd be worth your time probably to get underneath it, check, see if you see anything loose. If you find a heat shield loose and rattling, likely that wasn't part of what they did. But other than that, if it directly started when after they serviced it, it's likely something that happened while they were working on it. Are Baldwin oil filters okay? 2021 Crosstrack. I've heard about the PSI issues. I cannot say on Baldwin filters. I can't remember if I looked at them. I think Baldwin makes the CarQuest filters, the yellow, the blue, or the red. I can't remember. I think one's made by Purolator and one's made by Baldwin. But I don't know on a 2021. For a 2021 Crosstrack, I would be buying the black JDM Tokyo Roki filters. It should be the same one for a 2021 as all the way back to a 2013 Crosstrack, the ones I made the video on, I think about a year ago. Let's see, we already talked about that one. Iligato was no bueno. Yeah, he's a bad kitty. He's being rambunctious. Bought a 2013 Outback and now getting it up to snuff. Put in a new oxygen sensor, catalytic converter, new pads, rotors all the way around. Planning on keeping it a long time. Congrats on the new Subaru, or new to you. Do you guys think it's worth vacuum bleeding the cooling system in our Subis? Tim, what do you mean by vacuum bleeding? Do you mean as in using a vacuum refiller to vacuum the system out and then refill it? Or are you trying to put the system under a vacuum full and pull air out? Because I haven't seen anything like that before. All I've got is the vacuum refiller. And those are pretty much necessary on 2007 or so. No. 2005, honestly, Legacy and Outback and newer. And I think Forester starting in I think the 2010 or 2011 model year, due to the way the heater core is. It's really hard to get the air out of the heater core without using a vacuum refiller. Almost impossible on the brand new ones. What's the difference between EDM, Subaru, GC8, 2002, Turbo UK, or a Jade? I have no clue. I can't tell you the difference between the UK version and the Japanese version being in the US, because I've never seen the European version or looked into it. And I don't honestly know enough about the JDM version. I know that they had an EJ20 variant in them, EJ207. Other than that, I don't know much about the JDM turbo cars, because they're not prevalent here. 2005 Forester, check engine light on for PO442. Change the gas cap. It is using more fuel than usual. Suggestions to get it gone. What's the PO442? Is that an evap leak? Shoot, I was supposed to be finding the service manual for that WRX. Get that pulled up. We got that up. And let's see. P0442. 0442 is Is evap malfunction. There's got to be a better better definition than that. It's either a large or a small leak or something. Yeah, it's just a leak detected. It's very hard to diagnose evap issues without a smoke machine. If you've already replaced the gas cap, that's the quick and easy way to. That's the quick and easy way to, if you have an evap leak, is to change the gas cap, because normally the gas cap seals out. Other than that, unless you just see a hole in any of the evap hoses back to front, again, it's kind of hard to diagnose evap leaks. So easiest, quickest way to get that going will be to find a reputable shop that can smoke test for evap leaks and figure out what your issue is there, whether it be a cracked line, cracked charcoal canister, or something else in the evap system, purge valve, or what have you. Let's see. Also, any recommended machine shops near Southeastern North Carolina or Myrtle Beach area? I do not know in that area. All I know of is around Columbia, South Carolina, and in the upstate where I'm at. I don't know anyone down Myrtle Beach. That's about 3.5 hours from me. And Southeastern North Carolina, can't say. That's a little far from me as well. What's the best rust prevention method for snowbelt folks? I honestly cannot give you any advice on that, being in the South, not having to worry about rust whatsoever. We don't do any rust prevention, no preparatory work to our vehicles. We don't undercoat them. We don't do fluid film. We don't do any of that stuff. So I honestly cannot tell you what works and what doesn't and what's best, because it's not something we deal with at all here. Unfortunately, can't give you any leeway into that. Eric O, South Main Auto, I know he does the fluid film. I've seen some of his videos talking about the rust prevention and stuff and undercoating. So I'd probably check out his YouTube channel for that information, because, you know, he's in New York, so they deal with that kind of stuff. STI now or newer model? I definitely would wait to see what the new model is going to be. We'll know by the end of the year. And likely, if it's something highly anticipated, the prices will get good on the current model to get them off of the dealer lots in preparation for the new model. So if you wait and you want the new model, then hey, pre-order the new model. If you see the new model and despise it, you know, then you're going to get probably a better discount on a current new model as they're trying to phase them off. Man, my nose is itching. Is it safe to do a CVT fluid flush on a TR580 using a hose at the heater cooler? I never recommend any flush on any automatic transmission. Drain and refill it, especially if it's higher mileage. When you do a power flush, that is removing lots of it's agitating lots of sediment and stuff that's in the fluid. And a lot of times, if you blow all that stuff out, it's a lot to talk about. I don't know how much it affects it in the CVTs. I know how much it affects it in the conventional transmissions, but I've seen the video. There's a video on YouTube. I've been sent it several times on Instagram and emails from viewers where some guy and his wife are power flushing a CVT in a Forester, I believe, and they take the cooler lines loose and start the engine and use the pump to pump the fluid out. That could turn really bad really quickly if you don't cut the engine off soon enough, if you let the pump all the fluid out, if you let the pump go dry, if you let the pump cavitate. There's all kind of issues that can come up with that, much less the forcing every bit of old fluid out. The best practice is to drain and fill every 30,000 miles. That way you're always adding fluid and the fluid's not getting terribly disgusting before you replace it. You're always keeping it at a little bit of a used level and a little bit of a new level where it's not getting too contaminated and then going from super contaminated to completely fresh, or, you know, it's not something recommended. We can get into that in another video. it goes a lot deeper than that, especially on conventional automatics. But again, I don't know how much or how serious it is for a CVT. New model coming, yes, to refill. Okay, you're talking about the vacuum refiller. Yeah. It does make it a lot easier. You don't have to sit there with a spill-free funnel and try to constantly burp it and rev the engine and, take the heater hoses loose at the heater core. I've had to do that several times, especially on the 2005 and newer Legacy Outback chassis. You have to take the upper heater hose off, sometimes put a funnel in there, pour coolant down it to get coolant into the back behind the thermostat, because a lot of times an air bubble will form behind the back of the thermostat at the water pump. And when that happens, it will not open and you can't get the air out of the heater core. So a lot of times you've got to force coolant back into the heater core, or bleed the air out of the heater core by pulling that hose on and off, and you can burn your hands and all that kind of stuff dealing with the coolant. Plus you make a mess spilling coolant everywhere. It can be an aggravating thing. It can take 30 minutes, an hour sometimes, just depending how aggravating they want to be. So vacuum refillers are definitely the way to go. Hook it up to the radiator cap, draw the whole thing under the vacuum. It's also great for two reasons. One, it's easy. You just drop the refiller into the bucket of new coolant, open it, and your system's full. But two, you can hold it under vacuum and check to make sure you don't have any leaks in your cooling system before refilling it. So it's also, double-edged sword, and nice that you can make sure you have no leaks, and it's easier once you go to refill it. What do you consider excessive oil burning for an EJ255 engine? Reason for the rebuild was burning around 1 quart every 1,000 miles. Yeah, that is excessive. 1 quart every 1,000 miles is quite excessive. Half a quart every 3,000, 4,000 miles, I would say would be normal. I think it's odd that Subaru says that they can't. I think their new safe spec is like 1 quart every 3,000 miles or something. It seems excessive to me. Half a quart every 3,000 miles is kind of high to me, but mainly because that's about as much oil consumption as I see in my Subarus. I think my 02 Outback, I think I see about 2 or 3 ounces of oil every 4,000, 5,000 miles. I do a 5,000 mile interval. So half a quart to 3 or 4 ounces, something like that, is normally what I see at 5,000 miles on mine, with over 200 or nearly 300,000 miles on it. Okay, let's see if we can go ahead and pull that service manual back up and search that out. See if we can find the flow chart for you before I forget to do that. And why does this not want to work? Of course it doesn't want to search. Oh, let's see. Transmission engine. Where's diagnostics? With code. I wish the search would work. For some reason it's not wanting to search. $141. I'm sure y'all can hear that beeping at me. I don't know why search does not want to work on this thing. Oh, there we go. Or not. The magnifying glass is not working. And Adobe is locked up. Great. So while that's unlocking itself, let's see. Okay, that was back in response to the evap. STI now are the new 2.4 model. We've covered that already. Use a vacuum filler I got off Amazon. I think that was the rattling noise. That's what I thought too, was torque converter loose on the flex plate. Let's see, 2016 Outback, just changed plugs at 80,000 miles. 2 plugs had a small amount of oil residue on the plug threads. Anything to worry about? If you had oil residue on the plug threads, most likely that was the oil well seals in the rocker covers leaking. So more than likely you're going to need to go ahead and get ready to do your rocker cover gaskets and oil well seals, the little round donut gaskets that go in the rocker covers or cam covers on the FB. Just to seal that. That's what it is. The oil is leaking, and when you pull the plug out, it scraped that oil that's leaked into that chamber. But it's likely nothing in the engine. If the tip of the spark plug was dry, it was just the threads. It's where you drug the plug through that oil, removing it from those leaking spark plug tube seals. New to Subaru automatic cars 2001 Outback 40AT VDC. There's a buzzing solenoid-like sounding coming from near the transmission. Engine ignition on, engine off. Please tell me it's normal in experience. If you're not having any drivability issues, you don't have any check engine light, I would not worry about it. I honestly don't know if it's normal or not. I haven't taken the time to turn the key on without starting it and listen under the transmission. You know, there's lots of noise, especially on newer 2005 and newer. You get buzzing from the throttle body, the electronic throttle body. A lot of people have told me they've changed their throttle body because it was buzzing, and it's like, that's not an issue. There's no reason to replace it. They do a check sweep and make a humming noise if you just turn the key on and don't start it. Every time you go to turn the key on, they do a check sweep before the engine starts, just so they make sure they can go for their full range of motion and there's no issue with throttle control locking up or anything like that. Let's see if we can get Adobe to search now. E0141 for that WRX. Does Subaru use bias voltage on O2 or any other circuit? You're talking about as in a 5-volt reference? Bias voltages. Sounds like something I know, but I can't think right now. Thank you, Mike, for the $5 super sticker. Great. So that service manual is the wrong one. It did not find the diagnostic 2002 service manual. Car information, wiring, body, chassis, transmission, dual overhead cam, engine. I think the engine diagnostics, turbo. Here we go. All right. Check engine light code. That's a PO446. We're looking for 141. Let's see. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find this as fast as I can. That's the issues with check engine light not coming on or coming on and going off. That's not codes. Where are the codes? All right, PO32. PO118 was 141, 121, 122, 128, 139. Here we go. What? Why does it skip from 139 to 171? What is wrong with the service manual? Geez, I have to start around more. Sorry, Flying Monk, where was your question? The chat jumps around on me. It sporadically updates, so sorry if I missed your question. It wasn't on purpose. Hey man, 2000 Outback with 300,000 miles on the clock, original drivetrain. Thanks for all you do. You are welcome. Nice to see another survivor. Oh wait, it was PO 131, not 141. Let me back up. And if my nose will quit itching. 125, 128, 131. Front oxygen sensor, AF sensor, circuit, range performance problem, low input. For the diagnostic procedure, refer to DTC PO 132. For engine dual overhead cam turbo. So let's go to 132. Front oxygen sensor, AF circuit, range performance, maintenance problem, input high. DDT detecting conditions, 2 consecutive driving cycles with this fault. Caution, after repair or replacement of faulty parts, conduct clear memory mode on the turbocharged car under clear memory mode. So wiring diagram here. See if I can share my screen. And see if I remember how to do that. Apparently I don't. What am I doing? Why is it not letting me share my screen? Share screen. There we go. There we go. And it's tiny. You probably can't see it. Let's see if we can do this. All right. PO132 from oxygen sensor. Here's our wiring diagram for our oxygen sensor to the PCM main relay and the battery. Check up for any other DTCs. Is any other code saved? No. Go to step 2. Check front AF sensor. Let's see. You go through this. You said you checked it and you had 4.4 ohms between the pin 19 and the PCM. Where was this in the diagnostic procedure if it told us that? Any other diagnostic codes? No. Step 2, start the engine. Observe with the Subaru select monitor. Scan tool warm up of the engine until coolant temperature is 158 degrees. If the engine is already warmed up, operate idle speed for at least 1 minute. Read the data off of the front oxygen sensor using the scan tool. Note Subaru select monitor for detailed operation procedure or OBD2 scanner. Is the value equal to or more than 0.85 and equals less than 1.15 at idling? Yes or no? So if you go to brain fart, it's JDM dot, what is it? JDM dot SFM / Japan / Subaru. I've got the link somewhere, but it's a factory service manual, basically for all Subaru year models and models from the late 90s to current, or pretty much to current. I think it covers up to like 2016, 2018 on most models. They don't have the newest stuff, but you can find this, and it's got the diagnostic flow chart. There's several tests here of things to check, and it's kind of hard for me to go through it not having the car to test. So if you could find this, that would probably be the best bet to help you streamline diagnosing your issue with that PO131. Off topic, where did you get your accent from? Here where I was born at and raised. Hey, Mr. Subaru, is it normal for the EZ30, for a EZ30 with 131,000 miles to have a coolant weep from the left-hand cylinder head? Normal, no. Does it happen? Yes. You didn't say what year model it was, but there were some later EZ30D Phase 2s, like the 2008, 2009 model, and then some of the early 3.6R, the EZ36Ds, that they did have an issue with external head gasket leak. But I thought that was normally on the right-hand bank, but it can be the left as well. But if you got coolant seeping between the head and the block, you're going to need a head gasket replacement, which is way more involved on the EZ series engine and a pain, but it does happen. Is it something that happens on all of them? No, but any vehicle has the ability to have an issue with their head gasket. Likely what happened on this one, if you're not the original owner and haven't had it since new, perhaps whoever had it hasn't serviced the cooling system like they should have, or sometimes it's just they didn't put it together right, or an issue came up. Every car has faults. It just sucks that sometimes that kind of stuff happens. But no, again, the way your question is, no, it is not normal, but it can happen. Signs to look for that it's time to replace struts, hear occasional pop. We talked about that way earlier. Gas non-turbo. Okay, so you likely got a EJ25D single overhead cam. Hopefully it's not an EJ25D dual overhead cam. But yeah, some kind of blade in there to cut the boot off of the spark plug, pliers, pick it out piece by piece. That's about all that you can do, unfortunately. Struts for bearings. Yep, that's back to you. Yep, you could have issues with the top hats. Not too common do I see those fail. They're pretty easy to see when they start failing because they start getting a lot of cracks and stuff in the rubber at the top where you can, just look under the hood at the strut tower and go from there. 2007 Forester oil leak in the oil filter area. Seen this on Thursday. A customer's car. This was found during an oil change. Customer comes in with the complaint, finding spot in the floor. Being a Forester, likely it's got an oil cooler, and it's most likely the oil cooler O-ring. Very common failure. Very easy to replace. You remove the oil filter. I believe it's a 24 millimeter deep well socket on where the oil filter spins on. You'll spin that piece out. The oil cooler will drop down enough where you shouldn't have to take the two coolant lines loose from the oil cooler. Just drop it down. A pocket screwdriver will pick out orange O-ring about yay big. Throw a new one in there, tighten it back down, and good to go. But normally if there's oil dripping down the oil filter, it's likely 9 times out of 10 it's the oil cooler above it and the oil cooler O-ring is leaking. And it's running rich. Dang it, the chat just jumped again. Looks like I'm way behind too. Oh man. Sorry guys, I'm trying to get caught up as quick as possible. Would new struts include the top hat? No, normally Subarus do not sell a assembled strut or a quick strut. Normally you have to buy all the components individually. Oh, that got dark. Switch screens back. So just did an oil change and spark plug change on a 2017 Outback. Did a full drive, no issues. Turned it off for 10 to 15 minutes, and now it shuts off as soon as I turn it on. When you did your spark plugs, did you disconnect the battery? If so, you probably need to do an idle relearn procedure. And if you did, you likely need to go ahead and clean your throttle body before doing that idle relearn procedure. I've got videos on both the throttle body and on the idle relearn. Okay, if your resistance is supposed to be below 1 ohm and you got 4 ohms, you've either got corrosion at the pin at the PCM, or you've got corrosion on the pin at the oxygen sensor connector. I don't know, did you disconnect the oxygen sensor at the connector and probe the front of it? Did you back probe the connector? Did you check the resistance of your leads before you started testing? Just put them positive to negative, see if it's 0 ohms. 4.4 ohms would not be enough to make me think that it's shorted to chassis ground. That would seem like a corrosion issue to me in the wiring. I would think that it would be below, 1 ohm or below. So which way did you back probe the connector? Did you front probe the connector? Did you check your leads? Check out Rock Auto. I guess y'all are talking about the strut still. Stays on if it gives it gas. Yeah, likely idle relearn is needed because I'm assuming you took the battery out to do the spark plug, because normally you do need to remove the battery to get in there to the spark plugs. My secondary air pump went out on my 2006 Forester XT. Should I replace it or just delete it? I didn't tell you to delete it, but you should definitely not delete it, if you catch my drift. You can't delete it because it's an emissions thing and it's illegal. So don't delete it. Yeah, I made my contact loose. Hey, Mr. Subaru, currently... Now I got an eye twitch. Hey, Mr. Subaru, I currently got a new long block on standby on an engine stand. Did the timing belt before the winter. Will the belt and idlers be fine sitting there throughout the winter? You put the timing belt on the engine stand, as long as it's halfway climate controlled, or even if it's not, it should be fine as long as it's not in the weather and it's not, as long as the timing belt is dry and it's not getting contaminated with oil or anything like that, and it's not getting wet, it's fine. Getting cold is not going to hurt it. I mean, your car sits outside and it gets cold in the winter. It's not going to hurt it there either. So it should be perfectly fine. 2004 Forester 2.5 XT automatic transmission. Ooh, I know you asked something, Larry. I can't remember what that was now. Man, I really need to get caught up. Let's see, this stuff's from 9 o'clock and it is 9:30, so I'm 30 minutes behind, which is about where I stay in live chats. I'm over your hood, shake the car up and down, see if it's struck. Yep, that's another good way to check it. Never had a problem with them. Let's see if we can get caught up. How's my 2001 EJ251 manual 5-speed sound to y'all? It's pretty good mileage, 240,000. Any thoughts about the small 4-cylinder and the big Ascent? Should we wait to see if they offer a 6-cylinder if we want one? They're not going to give you a 6-cylinder. If they do, it's not going to be for a very long time. They put a lot of money into R&D for the 2.5 turbo. That's what you're going to get, unfortunately. The reason they scrapped the 6-cylinder, the EZ36D, is one, because of the fuel economy. They could not get the fuel economy where they needed. 2, it was the emissions. They didn't want to put all the money in to convert the EZ30D to direct injection, all this other stuff that it wasn't designed to do in the first place when they first designed the engine. So they just decided it was going to be cheaper to drop it and expand the 2.4 turbo. So 2.4 turbo is probably all you're going to see in the Ascent before Subaru transitions to EVs. So that's probably going to be one of the last ICE engines, internal combustion engines, that Subaru develops. Because it's probably not, we probably don't have 8 years left of internal combustion from Subaru and most other manufacturers, 8 to 10 years before they go EV, or majority EV, unfortunately. Have you ever swapped Subarus with JDM or STI engines on an NA car? What's your favorite Subaru? Do you like Subaru Brats or GC8s? I love the GC8 chassis. Wish I could find one someone not wanting an arm and leg for it. Bad boy's back. I love Brats. I wish I could find one. Every Brat I find is either astronomically priced or a rust bucket. What is my favorite Subaru? The SVX is high on the list. My Sandbar is high on the list. I love that little truck. I've not swapped a NA car to a turbo. Boy, I swear, if you don't quit eyeballing this microphone, you have got like the death stare on it. He wants to eat it. Get down. Don't be attacking. Rock Auto struts. 97 2.5 with a 4 EAT a month ago. Always when the ATF is cold, the transmission, no shift to second. I need drive for 10 minutes to work normally again. Cheers from Uruguay. Are you saying it stays stuck in first gear? It won't shift up to second for 10 minutes of driving? Yeah, that's not normal. That's odd. Now I got cat ear floating around. Normally with the 4EAT, they will shift hard cold until they warm up, and then they'll shift normally. That's a safety mechanism. They have increased the line pressure and shift hard when it's cold to keep them from slipping. But if it's not shifting out of first, yes, that is a pretty big issue. Let's see, we got an EJ2. Let's see, we already got that one. OEM nowadays. Let's see. Mack truck has a lot of potential. It has more appeal than the Sandbar. Just seems like a fun scooting around in the Sandbar, getting odds and ends done. Yep, I love a little Sandbar. Great little runabout. I really need to get back on working on the Mack truck. Actually, haven't started it in a month, and I went to start it last week when it was so cold, and my brand new batteries are dead, and I could not jump it off with the Duramax, so I have to charge those batteries up and get it running again, because I do need to get it to the tire shop and get the new tires mounted and balanced. Have you ever had experience with Monroe quick struts? What are your thoughts on non-OE strut assemblies? I don't know if Monroe offers a quick strut for Subaru. If they do, that's a easy way to replace them. Factory struts from Subarus are KYBs. I've always just bought KYB struts and assembled my own. The newer Subarus, I'm not sure what year model they switched, but I know my 2013 Crosstrek has Showa struts instead of KYBs. Showa is another Japanese strut manufacturer, SHOWA, but I noticed they were Showas, stamped Showa and Subaru on the factory struts on the Crosstrek. Where's the old one for KYB? I believe KYB offers a complete strut package, but I don't think they offer a assembled quick strut yet. Let's see. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the tips. That was about the struts still. Struts. Coilovers, mono quick struts. I pinpointed my bad MS by it not bleeding 2 of the calipers. There's 2 plunger type things with seals, and one must be master cylinder. I pinpointed my bad master cylinder by it not bleeding 2 of the calipers. There's 2 plunger type things with seals, and it must be in one bad. So you change your master cylinder, or going to change your master cylinder? Hey, Mr. Subaru, I recently had a check engine light on a 2014 2.5 Legacy, which has a P0171 code. Took it to Subaru, and they applied a software update to the PCM. Any idea what's in it? I have no clue what's in the update. See, a P0171 is lean code. Yeah. I believe I do remember there being an issue with lean codes, but I thought it was on the older models, and it was normally due to a leaking intake manifold gasket. But if the software update fixed your issue, good on that, but I don't know what specifically is in the software update. You were correct on the filter. Hey, Mr. Subaru, is it normal for an 07 Outback for an EZ30 with 130? Okay, yeah, we already talked about that one. Oops. He often asks, how often should I change transmission fluid? 2004 Forester, 3 years, 36,000 miles, a normal drain and refill. Let's see. Hey, Mr. Subaru, just wanted to ask if an 03 Outback is a reliable vehicle. I see a lot. I see you have a lot yourself. However, none of them run. So it seems all of my Subarus run that have engines in them. Thank you very much. Are they all roadworthy? Not really. They're parts, cars, and things I pick up for $200-300. Too good of a deal to pass up scrap metal prices. Lots of parts, sell parts off of them. Some I fix up and flip and sell. But yeah, every single Outback I've got, every single Subaru I have, I've got 20 or 21 Subarus currently right this second. And every single one of them run except for my 97 Outback Impreza, which doesn't have an engine or transmission in it. It's just a shell. My 93 Impreza wagon that has no engine or transmission. It's just a rolling shell. My 2001 Outback BDC, engine transmission out of it, rolling shell. And the Forester, the Silver Forester, the Red Forester, and the Seafoam Green 04 Outback, all 3 of those have the engines out, heads off of them. But every single one of them ran before I pulled them apart. So, yeah. Yeah, they're decently reliable cars. Easily 300,000 miles out of them with proper maintenance. Still talking about filters. Talking about let's see. Just installed a JDM EJ207 swap in my WRX. Started up today and it had a rod knock. Ooh. I'll be taking that out and sending it back to the importer that sold it to you. Hopefully you haven't sat on it for like a year before installing it. Let's see. Just doing some research on the side here. Anyone used Parts Geek before? Still talking about parts. Did you get a warranty on the new engine? Talking about the Starting to get a little hoarse. Pop a cough drop. Let's see, it's 9:30. We've been on for an hour. Might go to 10, might go to 10:30, not sure. How about your warranty? Hopefully they do. That'd be messed up if they didn't. Would you be able to help me find the torque specs for EJ25 expansion plug? What do we mean by expansion plug? Are we talking about the plug? Expansion plug. Are you talking about the 14 millimeter hex plug for like the coolant? Or are you talking about like the 10 millimeter plugs? Or talking about the oil galley plugs? What do you mean by expansion plug? Because I'm drawing a big blank right now. Gas cap. I was looking, I thought a horseradish was made from real horses. What in the world are we talking about? Let's see. 901 is still 30 minutes behind him. Check. I have a 2019 Crosstrack Limited. I want to enjoy boxer sound. I put a lot of miles on the Crosstrack at 27,000 per year. Would adding an AVO full exhaust setup with unequal length headers be a mistake? If they make a bolt-on exhaust for it, I don't see what harm it would do. If it's something you're going to retrofit on it, as long as you've got an exhaust shop that can make it work, or you can make it work, I don't see any issue with it. And it's your car. If you want to make the exhaust louder, that's up to you. I can't tell you yes or no on that. As long as it bolts on correctly and seals to the, as long as the manifold seals to the heads like it's supposed to, and you don't have exhaust leaks and it runs correctly. And I'm getting a red light flashing on my camera, so I need to change this battery before it dies. So give me a second. And should be back. Sorry about that. Whoop. Oh, now the stupid camera's going to be crazy. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Battery died on me. Hopefully they weren't scummy about it. That was about the engine. Hi, Mr. Subaru. Problem with 05 Legacy GT. It won't pass above. It won't rev past above 4,000 RPM. I have a check engine light with P0500. P0500 is vehicle speed sensor malfunction. So you need to diagnose the P0500 for the vehicle speed sensor. Again, let me see if I can find those. It's JDM FSM, JDM Factory Service Manual .info/auto/Japan/Subaru. That is access, like I said, to just about every single Subaru factory service manual. Go find your 2005 Legacy GT. Look in the diagnostic section under diagnostic code. Go to the P0500. It will give you the wiring diagram. It'll give you the diagnostic flow chart and tell you exactly what you need to check, what you should get from those checks, and get you to the repair the easiest. Likely causes a bad vehicle speed sensor, but that might not always be the issue. Might be something with the PCM, might be something in the wiring harness, pigtail, etc. So hard to say one way or the other without going to check it out. But definitely go to that website and get the flow chart pulled up. That'd be your easiest, quickest way to diagnose the issue. Need an update maximizer tool cart. Need an updated tour video or what? If you follow me on TikTok, which I know a lot of people are cringe when they hear TikTok, but there's a lot of people that have gone to TikTok. I do have an updated maximizer tour on TikTok. There's several videos of each individual drawer down through the cart. I did that last month, December, January. I don't remember now. It was recent enough. But yeah, if I get enough interest, maybe I'll do an updated full YouTube video, maximizer cart. It hasn't really changed much what I've got in it or the layout since the last video, so I don't really see a point in doing it. 82,000 subscribers, you should be getting free fluid film. Well, we don't use it in the South, so it wouldn't really be much good to me. I mean, if they want to sponsor the channel and send me a case of it and I can like raffle it off to you guys up north, we could do that, but it would not serve me any purpose whatsoever down here in South Carolina to have fluid film. I hadn't even heard of it before I saw it on South Main Auto's YouTube channel. I have oil from the lines coming out of the valve cover on the intake. 2004 Forester, 250,000 miles. I have oil from the lines. You're talking about the PCV hoses that come out of the top of the rocker covers or cam covers, rocker cover, being EJ, non-turbo. When was the last time you changed your PCV valve? A little bit of oil in there is normal. You're going to normally get oil in the PCV system. It's going to go through those hoses. The big resonator chamber that bolts to the throttle body. Normally there's going to be some oil in there, especially with 250,000 miles. It just happens, it accumulates in there. You know, every once in a while you need to flush it out of there. Not really something to be concerned about. Not out of the realm of normal. Wash car often after snow and salt. Fluid film is your friend. What is the stupidest thing Subaru has done in the last 20 years? Weird packaging designs. That could probably fill a book. The stupidest thing Subaru has done in the last 20 years. One of the stupidest things they've done here recently was getting rid of the manual transmission option for Legacy, Outback, and Forester. Stupid as in consumer choice. Not stupid as in Subaru couldn't sell the vehicles. All they were selling were automatics. Like a very small percentile of Legacy, Outback, and Forester were sold with manual transmissions, so it wasn't worth their time and effort to build them anymore. A lot of people leave that in the comments about the CVT transmissions. I'm actually going to do a video real soon about CVTs and expanding upon why people hate them so much and people wanting them to go away from CVTs back to a conventional, which isn't going to happen. And the fact that they've discontinued the manual transmission option on several of the models. And it all comes down to people weren't buying them, so they're not going to make them. That was a stupid thing. Still, though, to get rid of the choice. But, you know, stupid on the part of the consumer looking at the brand, but not from the brand looking as a business. Another stupid thing was the fact that they never fixed the head gasket issue. They never fixed it correctly. They continue to this day to make the single layer coated gasket and have yet to discontinue it and only sell the multi-layer turbo gasket when they know good and damn well that's how we fix so many of these cars permanently, is putting the turbo gaskets on the singular red cam, non-turbos. So that's stupid. They still make that old, obsolete, failure-prone gasket and haven't just superseded it with the multi-layer steel. Other stupid things, the fact that the CVT transmission doesn't have a dipstick on it, like just how that's every manufacturer now, though. They all have taken dipsticks off the transmissions just so that they're less DIY friendly to service, forcing you or trying to force you to come back to the dealership. It would just be so much easier if they still had a dipstick on the CVT. It'd be nice if they still had a dipstick on the front differential. That's a pain in the ass too, that they have a check plug on the front differential now. Like, they had a dipstick for years and years and years, and all of a sudden you get rid of the dipstick, and now it's just where the dipstick goes to the breather tube, and then they finally got rid of the breather tube. I don't know. There's lots of stupid things to do. Mandating eyesight on all 2019 and newer, that was stupid too. I like the choice of not having eyesight because that's just another system to cause issues and more cost in the vehicle. And I know they want to be like super safety to sedan and knock Volvo off of their tier as safest automobile or whatever. But I'm not a fan of the eyesight. I had a vehicle with eyesight, and I will not have another vehicle with eyesight. So all the newer Subarus are kind of off to me because I'm not going to buy one with eyesight. That's the reason why I bought the 2013 Crosstrek, is because it didn't have eyesight. It's okay every once in a while, but there's too many issues that come up with it. If you're driving in the afternoon and the sun reflects off the windshield a certain way, eyesight screws up and goes crazy, and all the warning light comes on. If eyesight has an issue, you cannot set your cruise control. If it's raining too heavily, if you use Rain-X, which I love Rain-X on your windshield, it can make eyesight do stupid things. If your windshield fogs up partially, if the camera can't see it any way, shape, or form, it freaks out and bugs out and turns everything off, and it's all kind of just ugh. Project Farm did a review on undercoating. Another grid channel, Project Farm, and I'll watch. You are welcome, Kevin. Thanks, guys, on the rush recommendations. Hey, man, thanks for great content. Would love to know what you think about buying a used 2015 plus WRX. The thing that worries me about buying any used WRX or STI, especially 2015 chassis and newer, is that primarily they are owned by morons. Sorry to any of you viewers that own these vehicles. I'm not saying that you are a moron. I just said that the majority of these are owned by morons. And I stick to that. I've seen plenty of 15 and newer WRXs that have been thoroughly destroyed because who owns them knows nothing about what they're doing. They throw stupid mods at them. They do not tune them. They beat the ever-living hell out of them. They drive them like they stole them. They do not maintain them. They put all of the money into barely affording the car payment, insurance, and modifications, yet will not put money into proper maintenance and care. Like, it was an issue from the bug eye all the way up to 2014. But 2015 and newer, Subaru's reputation and the kids buying these cars, and I do say kids because it's 18 to 25, 26-year-olds. That seems to be like the main group of people buying the VA chassis WRX, and they destroy them. If you can find a WRX used, certified pre-owned from a Subaru dealership, and it's extremely hard to get a certified pre-owned WRX or STI because normally they won't certify pre-owned. If they do, you have a better warranty than if you buy a new one. I would buy a certified pre-owned one if you can find them. Like I said, they rarely certify pre-owned WRX STI just because of the demographic of who owns them and how they're owned and how they're abused. It's always best to buy a new one. That way you know exactly how it's been cared for and who owned it from the get-go. But, you don't know what you're getting when you buy a used one. It just depends on who owned it and how much they abused it. It's hard to advise or recommend anyone to buy a used WRX or STI, especially the modern ones, for that reason. Good website brand to buy new struts, top hats. I get them off Amazon. Okay, the Amazon's got a KYB package for most Subaru models, the older models, the all four, two fronts and two back package. SubaruParts.com, Subaru Discount Parts. There's a lot of Subaru OE Subaru websites like that to buy parts from. If you shop around, a lot of them price match each other. You can usually find a way better deal than going to your actual dealership. I actually buy online, from these websites because I get a better deal on these websites than I do having a wholesale account at my Subaru dealership, which makes no sense to me that as a wholesale customer, I'm still paying more than what I could buy it for online. So I buy online. But yeah, there's many places to search for. You don't have to get a Subaru part number strut. You can get a KYB strut, an XLG or similar series, and should be basically the same thing, just without Subaru and the Subaru part number stamped on it. Let's see. They're the 5 HA expansion plugs. The 5 8mm hex expansion plugs and the 2 14mm hex expansion plugs on top of the block for 06 Outback base. It had cylinder loss, machine shop, split block. Okay, I think you left a comment on a video a while back and I actually looked through the service manual to find that, and I forgot to go back and respond to your comment. I'm sure they've got a torque specification. I do not recall what it is off the top of my head. If you've looked at jdmsfm.info/auto Subaru Japan Subaru at the service manual, and you can't find it in there, just snug them up. If I recall correctly, they're all sealed with like a Teflon tape or pipe thread sealer, the white stuff that comes in a little bottle with a brush. You put that on there and just tighten them up. They don't need to be super tight. They're just, as long as you got the sealer on there, you should be good. If you can't find the spec. EJ25 and someone swap it out for a JDM EJ20. What can I use off the EJ20? So you've got a non-turbo EJ251, 253, and you're going to a JDM EJ20 single overhead cam non-turbo, I assume. When you do that, basically, depending on the year model, there's some screw balls in there, but normally you can strip down the EJ20 to the long block. So head, block, cam covers, all that. Put it in place of the EJ25. Use the EJ25 intake manifold, the wiring harness, fuel injectors, fuel rails, and the EJ25 exhaust manifolds. And normally that's all you got to do. Sometimes you have to replace the cam sprockets and crank sprocket due to the number of teeth for the reluctor. But normally that's all you have to really worry about. It's normally pretty straightforward. 2015 Forester CVT wants to stall when I come to a stop. Ideas what it could be. First thing that comes to mind is torque converter or throttle body. Torque converters in 2015 Forester off a TR580 was not a common issue. So I'd lean more towards a dirty throttle body. A quick way to check the torque converter. Come up to a stop. I'm assuming a more stout stop stalls it, not a regular stop. It's more of a panic stop. Next time you come to a stop sign, or if you're off a main road, put it in neutral. Come to the stop sign, stop as hard as you can or hard as you feel safe, or at the same amount of stopping force that normally you stop at in drive that stalls it. If when you put it in neutral, it doesn't stall when you stop, like when in drive, I would say torque converter clutch is screwing up and not disengaging. If it stalls regardless, likely the throttle body. Although that's now not making much sense to me. If you stalling in neutral, I would understand drive. Throttle body's closing and it's choking the engine down. It kind of depends on how it cuts off. If it chokes, if it sputters and chokes and then dies, just do what I said at first. I'm overthinking it. It's getting late and brain's wanting to get fuzzled. So yeah. Stop it in neutral, see if it stalls out. If it doesn't stall in neutral but does in drive, that would point towards the torque converter. But again, torque converters were not an issue then, normal issue. They were a 2010, 2011 Outback Legacy TR690 had an issue, a known issue for the torque converter clutch. But likely it's going to be a throttle body, dirty throttle body, and an idle relearn should get you back going. How are those X-frame wrenches working out? And they're on my wish list to try. I have not used them yet because I have not filmed the unboxing first video. I need to go ahead and do that. It was raining all last week and very cold, and I didn't get much done, unfortunately. So hopefully tomorrow I can get to the farm and film the initial video on the X-frames. And once I film the initial video, you know, unboxing it, any quality issues out of the box, going over the ratcheting mechanism and all the specifications on it, then I'll start using them, and we'll report back afterwards how they've held up. And in between unboxing and using them, we'll do a a testing video, running them up against the dual 80 snap-on ratchet wrenches, the precision torque ratchet wrenches, and some other ones I own. So it might make 2-3 videos from the X-frames, not sure yet, just depending on how well it's received and what kind of interest I get in those videos. 2004 Forester XT hasn't shown any noticeable oil burn yet. I must be lucky. I do have dirty plugs though. Oil consumption really wasn't an issue that badly in the EZ series. It really hasn't come up really until the F series engines. Valve cover hose, the intake has oil. I think we've talked that one already. We talked about that one already. If I smell fuel in the fuel pressure regulator vacuum hose, is that the same as finding fuel inside the vacuum hose? Replace the fuel rubber hose. They were leaking in the rails. Backfire us when shut off. Yeah, if you take the vacuum hose off the regulator and you smell fuel in it, then likely the regulator's leaking. I'd replace the regulator. You shouldn't smell fuel in there. It should just be, it's just a vacuum line from intake vacuum to the diaphragm and the fuel pressure regulator, so you should not smell fuel in there. 2010 WRX EJ25, and someone swap it out with EJ20 JD. Okay, it wasn't a non-turbo, so you switched to EJ255 for an EJ207, so that's a little bit more involved with the swap. Pretty much goes the same route I said. The EJ20 would be used as a short block, and use the turbo piping, turbocharger, intake, intercooler, and all off of the EJ25. Should basically go in the same place. Depending on what EJ20 it is, whether it was an AVCS engine or a non-AVCS engine, and being a 2010 WRX, it should be an AVCS engine on the intakes. You're going to have some monkey business there. So it's probably going to be issues with the AVCS system if you're having issues. What was the 2020 WRX 2.5? Someone swapped the EJ20. What can I use off of the JDM swap to go back to? Okay, what can you? Yeah, it should have the intake, exhaust, everything, but the long block should still be the original EJ25 stuff if you're putting EJ25 back in it. Only thing 20 should be the block and the heads, most likely, depending on how they swapped it. The easiest swap is to do that. If you want to get complicated and get PCM and wiring and all that, and try to make the AVCS, the dual AVCS work, if it is dual AVCS, and sometimes they've got to switch camshafts and cam sprockets, can be a pain. So depending on what way they swapped it is what you can reuse. That's kind of a ambiguous answer. 2015 Impreza, rear passenger side brake squeal, sometimes at speed, squeaking stop as soon as I tap the brake. Already cleaned the pads and clips. Are you seeing any kind of uneven wear? Is the inner outer pad the same thickness? Are they wearing crooked? Are they the pads slide freely in the caliper bracket? Was it aftermarket pads? Sometimes with aftermarket pads, I found, especially recently, the coating they put on the actual metal part of the pad that the friction material hooks to, sometimes when they paint them, they paint and glob on too much paint on the ears, and I have to take a grinder and grind the paint off enough where they'll slide freely in the caliper. If you check the caliper slide pins, make sure they're free and nice and lubed up, things of that nature. See if possibly they're dragging or something. Put some silicone on the back of your pads for the squeaking, that as well, if it doesn't have the anti-squeak pads. SR20 DET rear drive swap at GC8, bro. Oh my God, I'm not putting not doing SR20 in a Subaru. If I'm putting anything in a Subaru, it's gonna be an LS. And I know some of y'all cringe at the LS thing, but I was all LS before I got into Subarus. I've had 5 Corvettes, 2 of which were Z06s, 1 to 50th anniversary, 9 F-body Camaros. Well, they're all F-bodies. 9 Camaros, 4th gens. 8. 1 was a 3rd gen. 3 Trans Ams, 4th gen. A modern 2006 GTO, a 2008 G8 GT, which is the VE Commodore 6-liter. A Joe Gibbs Silverado. 2 other 5.3-liter 1500 Silverados before I got my Duramax. So I've had a ton of LS architecture V8 vehicles. Loved them. Miss them. Not enough so to go buy another one, but they were fun. What's the deal with the CVTs? Can you repair them or just replace them? Normally, the dealership replaces them. I think I heard recently that they've started allowing them to do some slight not rebuilding, but repair on them, chains and variators, and above what they do now, which is just valve body or hull replacement. But most places just replace them with either used or a reman. There's not a ton of people rebuilding them. I don't even know if Jasper and like those big generic remanufacturers are remaining them yet. 2012 Impreza, 56,000 kilometers. Do you think we need change the CVT, change oil CVP tank for response? I'm assuming you're asking if we need to change the CVT fluid. 3-year, 36,000 mile would be the recommendation. So a 12 with 56,000 kilometers, which would be what, 28, 30,000 miles. So yeah, I'd do a drain and refill. It won't hurt anything. I don't know who Jake is. I guess that was something going on in the chats. I know I'm using the block sealant to go around the threads for expansion plug. I wasn't sure. I'm gonna check there. Yeah, you can use ultra gray around those plugs. Should be fine. Ah, damn, chat just jumped again. But we got a super chat from Max Headroom. Hopefully you're not going to hack and take over the live stream, Max Headroom. That wasn't Max Headroom. What was that? That was something else. Anyway, 2015 Forester repaired head gasket right away at dealer. Thanks for watching your channel. Anything I should be doing to prevent this again since they just used same gasket? Yeah, 2015 Forester with a head gasket issue on FB25. That's not a common issue. Was it repaired under warranty? Did Subaru of America help pay the cost of the repair? What's the deal with that? That's odd. What kind of mileage do you have on it that you had a head gasket issue? Interesting. Thank you again for the $5. Shoot, I don't remember where we're at. So we're just going to jump in right here. Now let's jump in right here. Another thing that sucks about Outback Legacy is when dropping the side bolts on the transmission mounts suck. And I think we need to jump back up a little bit. Now we'll start back here. As East Coast maintenance details for DIY details for perfect weather SoCal maintenance times, not money for my DIY, so implemented a little thing. Okay, I'm assuming y'all are talking amongst yourselves here. I've gotten wait, do we have another super chat somewhere I missed? I saw one pop up at the top of the screen. Oh shoot, my scrolly wheel screwed up. I will take that every day, Bubble Brimfield. Hey, Mr. Super, great tongue-tied. Great content. I'm putting a rear wing on my 2009 Forester Turbo. Putting a wing off of a 2009 Forester Turbo on an 09 Limited. Is there a template for the holes, or what is the best way to do this? I'm assuming Subaru has a template for it. How do we acquire it? I have no clue. Especially for an 09. If you bought the wing from Subaru, from the Subaru parts department, it normally will come with the template to install it. I don't know if you can buy that separately. I don't know if you can download that somewhere and print it off, although you wouldn't be able to print off the full length template for the hatch on a regular 8x10 piece of printer paper. So I did a tick linkage update, my shifter assembly. What is a tick linkage? A shift linkage, I guess you meant. 2004 Impreza, trying to figure out what is the difference between the shifter assembly with the return spring and one without. I honestly do not know myself. As far as I know, every single one from the factory come with the return spring. I have yet to see one that didn't have the return spring. I've replaced them with the Torque Solutions joint that doesn't have the provision for the return spring. And I've not had an issue. It's just not as nice when it doesn't return straight to center. But I don't know which vehicles did and did not have one from the factory, or if any of them didn't have one from the factory. How do you recommend removing a seized hard line fitting on the brake master cylinder? Soak that joker in as much penetrating oil as possible, flare nut wrench, not an open end wrench, and gently try to work it back and forth. Heat would be great, but I don't know how good it would be to torch right there at the master cylinder. A mini ductor would be great for that if you had one. Likely plan on possibly having to replace that master cylinder though, and the brake line. because it very well could snap off in there and be bad times. Looking at a 2012 2.0 Impreza this week, 125,000 miles, 5-speed, reliable for a daily. As long as it was properly cared for, sure. Especially being a 5-speed, you don't have to worry about any of the CVT issues, just clutch issues. And as long as the clutch isn't slipping, and you're not seeing massive oil leaks on it, and the valve spring recall's been done, you should be good to go. Do you have a website where I can buy them? I'm not sure what that was in response to, since the chat jumped on us. Sound. Are y'all not getting sound? Uh-oh. I've been talking and not being heard for the last 30 minutes. I replaced 2008 Outback 2.5's engine and air filter twice now. First time I had no problem. Second time, though, I struggled for over an hour getting the air box to close properly. Any tips for closing it? Unless the air box warped up some way. I mean, it should just slide on there. Are you opening the air box without taking the hose off of it? Or that's normally when I struggle is if I just pop the box up, put the air filter in, and then, without loosening the clamp there. But there's not really any tips or tricks I can give on it. Is it normal for a throttle body air box to crack near the throttle body on the EZ30? Normal? No, I haven't really seen it, but I mean, anything with enough heat cycle stress, anything plastic or rubber, I mean, it can happen. 02 WRX wagon just got done, rebuilding the engine. After getting the engine in, I'm getting grinding noise from the transmission when trying to drive. Clutch pedal feels good and shifts into gear. If you're getting a grinding noise from the transmission when trying to drive, I would say your clutch is not fully disengaging. Did you reuse the old clutch, or did you install a new clutch kit, clutch disc, pressure plate, etc.? When you put it back together? Rebuilding 4-pot calipers versus rebuilding them. What? Versus buying them. Depends on how good you are at rebuilding a brake caliper and how easily you can find the caliper rebuild kit. Much cheaper to rebuild them than it is to buy them. What's your thoughts on Subaru programming and using the OEM or aftermarket? I do no programming, so I cannot advise you on that. I've got the Subaru Select Monitor for diagnosing above and beyond what my my Zeus can do. But I do not do programming. Have never done programming. For the cost of getting into programming and as little as I would ever do, it's not worth it to me at this point to get into it. So I haven't really looked into it. I sold plenty of J boxes when I was a Snap-on dealer. If I was going to get into it, that'd probably be what I would use. As far as factory level, I think they use the Denso DSTI module interface for programming as well as running the Select Monitor 4, but I'm not sure. When turning on electronics like power windows, AC compressor on the 2010 2.5 Legacy with manual transmission, it falls low on revs. Any idea why? Is it normal? It's slightly normal that turning on electrical loads will put more of a strain on the alternator and in turn strain the engine. You might have an alternator that's starting to get weak. You might have, dirty throttle body, might need to do an idle relearn. That perhaps it's choking it down too much. So things I would check, get your alternator tested and see if your throttle body's dirty, needs to have an idle relearn done, see if that helps any. Also check, your grounds, check your battery cables for corrosion, anything in the system that may put more undue stress on the charging system. Google overhead cam, Brembos, or Subaru steel ones. Oh, that was about the brake caliper. Is it common for throttle body airbox to crack? We talked about that just now. Would you do a video on aftermarket parts that solve factory issues? There is not, and all the time I've been working on cars, there's not pretty much ruled out that 90% of aftermarket parts are garbage and a waste of money. That's why I'm so adamant about using Subaru OEM parts. There's very few aftermarket parts I use or recommend, and the quality of the ones that used to be good have significantly dropped in years. So I really do not push aftermarket parts at all. It's very rare, far and few between. And normally, if it's an aftermarket part I'm using, it's not actually aftermarket. It's actually an OE part, just from the original manufacturer, not stamped Subaru, like a Mitsubishi timing belt or a Bondo serpentine belt, or a Mitsubishi serpentine belt as well, or NGK spark plugs that are Subaru OE, or KYB struts that are Subaru OE, or Nabtasco slave cylinders that are, what Subaru OEs for the slave cylinder and master cylinder, or what's another good example? Mitsubishi starters and alternators. What else? There's a lot of parts that you can find that are OE but not marked as such from Subaru for usually a little bit less money. Has anyone heard of or used Master Pro strut assemblies? Not ringing a bell on that. Getting rid of the dipstick on the 6MT was dumb. Yeah. They really got rid of the dipstick on the 6-speed manuals. I hadn't realized that, because my buddy had a 2010 Legacy and it was a 6MT. Pretty sure his 2010 still had a dipstick. I never looked on my 2019 WRX though, but I thought that it had dipstick still. Maybe it didn't. But yeah, that's dumb to take it away from the manual transmission too. I think y'all are talking about South Main Auto. Is a noisy throwout bearing a major issue on a 2014 WRX? Well, it can be, especially on the WRX 5 speeds. There's many instances of the throwout bearing going from noisy to imploding, and normally when it does, it destroys the input shaft, the outer part of the input shaft of the transmission, and they have these repair sleeves that you have to put over them. Usually you can use a repair sleeve. Sometimes you can even use repair sleeves to fix the 5-speed transmission, and it messes up with where the release bearing rides. So it's always better to change them before they fail than to let them fail and possibly destroy you the front of your transmission, because that does happen. I just bought a 2006 WRX Limited original owner, 108,000 miles unmolested. Took me 5 months off a stack of receipts. Nice score. Especially hard to find a virgin WRX that hasn't been molested. There may be a TSB for that model year. Throwout bearing. Google. I think there was a TSB on certain WRXs about the throwout bearing, release bearing. Not sure though. I don't think they did a recall, but I think there was a TSB on it. So I don't know if they extended the coverage on it or not. What about millennials? I'm a millennial, technically. Hello there. A 2008 WRX EJ255 consumes a lot of oil, like a quart every 3,500 miles. A quart every 3,500 miles is high, but it's not quite excessive. It's not quite great either. Being a WRX, possibly an air oil separator is needed. It might be eating more oil than it's consuming through the turbocharger and the PCV system. Let's see. Hey, Mr. Subaru, in your opinion, would you say that the current Crosstrek models are pretty gutless and need more power? I honestly didn't have an issue with my 2013 Crosstrek CVT 2.0, 135, 145 horsepower. I don't drive very fast anymore. I kind of got all that out of my system when I was in my 20s with my Corvettes and stuff. So I don't mind it whatsoever. Rarely do I have to pass anyone on a 2-lane where passing horsepower is necessary. Normally, I don't want to pass someone. I really don't want to full throttle the car. I don't think I've ever gone full throttle in that car, just because I don't want to put undue stress and strain on the CVT. Driving my car like a little old lady. Maybe that's why my Subarus last so long. I don't know. But I've never had an issue, so to say, where I required more horsepower, honestly. But yeah, having a 2.5 Crosstrek, one of the new ones, 10, 15 extra horsepower, 20 extra horsepower, whatever it was now, it can't hurt. But yes, it is on the slower side. Let's see. I change my oil every 3,500 miles or so. It never bothered me, but I consume about half a quart every 2,000 miles, 150,000 miles on the 08 STI. 2009 Legacy GT 5-speed. Again, guys, if I miss your question, I'm sorry. The chat jumps and I lose my place, and I don't always get to go in chronological order and cover everything. So please, stick with me here. Try my best. 2009 Legacy GT 5-speed, looking to put in a transmission. Where should I shop? You're looking for another 5-speed transmission. Local salvage yards are going to be your cheapest bet. Subaru dealership is going to be probably the most expensive bet, but you'll probably get a warranty with it. So it just depends. I mean, if you've got local pull apart, you pull it, you're going to get a transmission for a couple $100. LKQ is another good source. Ace Auto Salvage is someone local. I don't know if they're like a national thing like LKQ is. I buy a lot of used engines and stuff from LKQ. Normally don't have a big issue with them. Oil consumption is almost a given with turbocharged cars. Yep. Let's see. STI longevity. What do you think? What's the highest mileage you've seen? Stock, minute, axle back, exhaust. Highest mileage STI I've seen has been over 300,000 miles. There's actually quite a few WRX STIs on Naziak and all the other. I know y'all, I say it wrong or something. I know people have commented in the past about the way I say Naziak or whatever the hell you pronounce it. I know it's an acronym, whatever. But in the Subaru forums, I've seen several WRX STI models over 300,000 miles. It's all about how you care for them, maintain them, and modify them. And these were almost all unmodified, unmolested cars. So personally, that I've worked on the highest mileage STI, I think I've put hands on was that silver 2005 I worked on and did the video on, 2 years ago. I think it was 200,000 miles on that one. Let's see. We're coming up on 10:30. I'm probably going to wrap it up there. 2 hours is about as much as I can do. Starting to get a little bit more horse here. So let's see. We got about 10 minutes, and we're going to close it up for the night, guys. So let's see what we can push through. Let's see. 2018 Forester XT sound coming from driver's side of engine bay. Sounds like a dove whirling with a clicking sound. I hear it when going uphill under load when accelerating. Going from the driver's side of the engine bay, sounds like a dove whirling clicking sound. I think those engines have a air pump on them, and I think the air pump's on the driver's side. I don't know if you're hearing the air pump running or if it's something else. Do you have a check engine light on? Is there any other issues, drivability concerns, or how long have you had the car? Is it a new sound, or is it something you've noticed for a while, or you need a little bit more information on that one. Let's see. Oh, dang it. Chat just jumped again. We were at a super chat, though. Where were we at? Hey. Thanks for the $5. Appreciate it, Blake. I didn't know Montevello was doing a live stream tonight. Okay, so that jumped. I think that's about where we're at. I think we're at max headroom. Let's see. where's some more questions? We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna wrap it up here in 10 more minutes, guys. 10:30 EST. We've been on 2 hours, so we're gonna have to close it up. Got a 2021 Outback as a rental for a few days. It was a slow dog compared to the 07 Forester XT with a small tune. I bet it was, especially if it's just a 2.5 NA. 2002 WRX Pin 7 on OBD2 port has no signal. I can't get a scanner to read codes. Do I need a special scanner? Where do I start? I've looked at wiring diagrams, not much help. Have you checked? Are you not getting power at the OBD2 connector? Is that what you're saying? Have you checked the fuse for the cigarette lighter? Because cigarette lighter fuse normally powers the OBD2 port. If you don't have power to the OBD2 port, it's not going to scan. Hi, EJ251. Any reason why the engine oil dipstick not accurate? I wiped it down. Pull it out for an oil level check. It always has some residual along. Actual level is hard to read. Sometimes they are tricky to read. But, you know, the residual on the top or bottom of the stick doesn't matter. Wherever you see the solid line across the fluid of oil, that's where your reading's going to be. Is it okay to re-ask questions? Yeah, if I didn't see your question, sure, re-ask it. Because, like I said, every once in a while the chat will jump like 30, 40 chats, and I forget where I'm at. So it is easy to lose my position. On my 2010 Legacy 2.5 with manual transmission, every time I turn on the electronic accessories engine. Okay, we talked about that with the alternator issue. I have a 2019 Descent, bought new. Haven't had any problems yet, but should I trade it in given the problems with that model year? If you're not having any issues, I wouldn't worry with it. If it's a lease, did you buy it or lease it? It said bought new, so I assume you bought it, paid for it, or financing it. As long as you got the factory warranty, keep it. And if you're worried once the factory warranty expires, you know, you can trade it in, whatever. I mean, that's your decision to make. I don't have a magic 8 ball where I can tell you, you know, that it's going to be something bad go wrong with it in X amount of time. I wish I could tell people that, but, you know, I don't have any way to predict what will or will not happen with your vehicle, unfortunately. So it's hard to advise on matters of the future. Hey, Frank. Nice thumbnail there. Subaru green coolant service intervals. 3 years, 36,000 miles. Subaru blue super coolant is 10 years, 100,000 miles. Subaru recommended 8 years, 80,000 miles is more in the realm of reason. Because we know what happened to 10-year, 100,000 mile Dex Cool when GM came out with their first high mileage coolant. Why did the motor blow up? Damage occurred in trans when the engine went. What? I think I missed part of that conversation. Do you sell your Subaru? Do you sell your Subaru on a website? I do not. I normally list them on Facebook Marketplace or put them in my mother's front yard in town to sell them. 2000K 3500 350 Vortec running extremely rich and low horsepower. Thoughts? 2000 350 Vortec, is that let's see, 2000 if it's 350 it's still 5.7, so it's likely spider injection. Oh god, you just scared the crap out of me. What were you doing, sleeping over there? So a 2350 Vortec, if it's running extremely rich and it's chugging, most likely the spider injection, there's two fuel feed lines inside the intake manifold or under the intake cover where the spider is. It's two clear hard lines, and a lot of times they'll get a puncture or they'll bust with age, and they'll start dumping fuel in the intake manifold, and it'll cause hard starts. They'll chug, black smoke, super rich, all that stuff, low power. There were 2 or 3 different systems with that. They had one that had the throttle body on the front. It had a metal upper intake shroud with the spider inside. 2000 should have the polycarbonate intake with the spider connector in the center with the throttle body. Sometimes you can crack the throttle body open, take a flashlight, look in there, and you'll see literal puddles of fuel. Another easy way to check is to hook a fuel pressure gauge up to the fuel rail, turn the key on, cycle it till it goes up to should be like 60 psi. If it doesn't hold pressure and it drops back down, likely you're dumping fuel in the intake manifold. But if it holds pressure, you should be good. But like I said, I've seen that time and time again with the spiders, either the spider leaking or the two feed lines in the intake to the spider. Common issue. So that's where I'd look first. What we got? Real life, the 5.7s have a huge spider injector system leak issue. Yep, just talked about it. 99 Impreza Outback Sport. My fuel gauge reads wrong. I changed the fuel filter, but I'm guessing it has to be fuel pump arm or injectors. Which would you take? If your fuel gauge is reading wrong, it's going to be the float on the side of the fuel pump assembly. Rarely do I see those. I don't know, I'm doing this. Getting late. Mine's going. Rarely do I see those fail in Subarus. One thing that I have seen is it's the fuel system float. 99.9% of them is a float arm with a variable resistor, and it's got a little sweeper that sweeps along this carbon pile of variable resistance, and that gives you your fuel level. The little swiper, the little tangs can break off, and it doesn't make good contact with the carbon pile, or ethanol gas can start building up on the carbon pile and prevent the swiper from reading the carbon pile. A quick and easy thing to try: if you pull it apart, pull the fuel pump module out, and you don't see like the little fingers broke off of the swiper. If you see like some gunky looking buildup on the carbon pile, which is like a little semicircle of like contact traces, a pencil eraser, a pink pencil eraser, you can erase on the contact, the carbon piles, and clean that variable resistor. Normally that'll fix the issue. You can test it outside of the vehicle as long as the fuel pump module is disconnected and all that. You can plug the electrical connector in, turn the key on, and you can move the arm up and down once you've cleaned it to see if it's working again before you reinstall it. I've seen your thread inserts. I've seen your thread insert videos that are great, random BS that work, that might help you score a boss, weld, and bung sense. I get busy and get the oil service sometimes. Robert looks tired. Yeah, I'm getting there. Current Project 98 Legacy GT Wagon EJ22D EJ22 with EJ25D heads. The TD04 run a wastegate pressure. I replaced the prop shaft on my 99 Legacy Outback manual video. Was very helpful. Thanks. You were very welcome, Alex. I think it skipped my question in the chat. It says, newer tech, what would you recommend getting from different brands like Coke and Snap-on, Matco, etc.? Price isn't much of an issue. What are you working with now? What are you starting with now? And what is your weekly budget for tools? Would be the first to come back with. If price isn't much of an issue, a good set of Snap-on flank drive plus combination wrenches is very high on the list. A good set of Snap-on flank drive sockets is high on the list. I know I push a lot of Snap-on, but I work for the company for 5 years. I've been to the factories. I know where it's made and how it's made. I've seen the testing with Snap-on against all the other brands. There are plenty of other brands that are great, but you know, I'm just a Snap-on person. So dual 80 ratchets are great. Koken ratchets are great. Mac Axis ratchets are great. I don't like Matco really, but I do collect the ratchets. Like, you know, what it comes down to is what tool, if you're going to buy on a tool truck, what tool truck comes by the shop every week, who's been coming by the shop for years, who is going to give you good service. If you have a Snap-on guy, go with Snap-on. If you have a Matco guy, go with Matco. If you've got a Mac guy, go with Mac. If you got all three, go with Snap-on. You know, if you don't have any tool truck coming by, Gear Wrench, SK, Koken, Hot Zet, Stalavilla, all great professional grade tools. It's just all on personal preference at the end of the day. I'm an idiot. I'm a moron. I'm a tool fanatic, as most of you have figured out at this point. I literally have a set of sockets, combination wrenches, and ratchets from basically every single daggone manufacturer at this point, and just trying to figure out which one I think is the best, and test them out and report back to you guys where you don't have to buy every single tool under the sun. I don't know why it's like my personal mission in life now to buy every single tool from every single manufacturer, but I love tools. And not married, don't have kids, house is paid for, cars are paid for, don't have any debt to my name, don't have any credit cards, don't have any student debt, don't have any student loans, so I can spend money like this on tools because I don't spend money on anything else, honestly, other than bills and insurance and stuff like that, so I don't have a big mortgage payment. My house is paid for. I don't have, car payments because I buy $500 Outbacks and things like that. I owe all of $500 on my credit card because I use my credit card as my debit card, and I pay it off at the end every week just to keep my credit current. And, that's how I have the disposable income, so to say, to waste on tools. I mean, everyone's got a hobby, and I like tools. I like working on cars. I like working with tools. So, yeah, so a little bit more information on that. But, yeah, whatever tool truck shows up and service you the best is the tool truck you should probably buy off of. And if you don't have any tool truck at all, it's buy a couple items from each of the individual manufacturers I listed to see what works best for you, see what feels best in the hand. Because that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, is what tool works for you. Because everybody's hand is not the same. Everyone does not have the same preference of feel of a wrench or ratchet handle, etc. And that's basically as much as I can tell you without talking for hours about tools. Let's see, we're past 10:30 now, so let's jump to the bottom, try to catch a few more things, and wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody that stuck with me this far. Joe, thank you for becoming a channel member. Greatly appreciated. And forgive me, I'm horrible with names and faces, but I'm pretty sure you're the guy that's in Lancaster, and I looked at your Outback the other week. Hopefully that ABCS Illinois fix your issue, since I haven't heard back from you on it. But I'm pretty sure that's you. But forgive me if it's not, because like I said, I'm horrible keeping track of names and faces, especially online personalities versus real world. 2005 WRX wagon bone stock, scratchy, raspy noise upon startup when it's cold outside. Why? Ooh. Only when it's cold? Where's this noise seem to be emanating from? Is it an engine noise? Is it a transmission noise? Is it wind starting? Is it first few seconds of running? A little bit more information on that. High test. My aunt has a 2021 and likes it, but time will tell. I missed something here. Leaking injectors, battery, and due for fuel. All right, let's get to the end here. Hey, folks, talking about us. Hi, hello. We're getting ready to wrap it up. Unfortunately, just thought of another good one. Wind noise in my Forester is horrible. I've done most things except the gussets. Well, the gussets are gonna be the fix for it. So go ahead and invest in them gussets if you want to be quiet in there again. 2018 had bad coils, 15,000 miles before I found it. Any secondary issues? 2018 Outback had bad coil for 15,000 miles before it was found. If it was dumping fuel and the coil wasn't firing at all, and it was dumping fuel, I mean, you could have catalytic converter issue. I doubt it did any issue to the combustion chamber. Honestly, other than the spark plug, putting a new spark plug and coil, you should be good. It shouldn't be any long-term damage, although that's a long time for it to be misfiring and have an issue to not be resolved. Joe, yes, it was me. All good so far on the ABS since ABS. Okay, cool. I thought that was the name, but I wasn't sure. So good on you. I knew I hadn't heard back from you in a week or two. since it snowed. So I figured you'd replaced it and we're good so far. So hopefully we don't have any more issues with that bank misfiring, and hopefully we got it figured out for you. Thanks so much, Sparkplug. We're saying, oh, all righty. You think Subaru will ever drop the new 2.5 liter into Forester? It's likely the 2.5 is going to be phased out for the 2.4, I would imagine, in the near future. Scratch that. Probably not. Actually, let's see. The FB25B, now FB25D with the direct injection, that engine was released in what, 2010 in the Forester, 2011? So it's 10 years old now. The EJ series ran from like 8990 to 2010. I don't know. I've heard talk of them going to small bore turbocharged engines, kind of like what every other manufacturer's done, like GM with the 1.4 turbo and the Cruise and the compact Spark and all that stuff. Ford, I think, has got a smaller EcoBoost 4-cylinder in their economy cars. I think in Australia and the UK and possibly Japan, I think they've got a small bore 1.5 or 1.6 turbo EJ economy. I'm not sure. I've heard talks of it, but I don't know. We'll see what happens in the U.S. market. I don't know if the emissions and fuel economy and all will work for the U.S. All right, Derek, you are the lucky last question of the night. Now that it is 10:37, we're going to answer your question, and we are going to close out before I completely lose my voice. 2018 BRZ TS, 19,000 miles, empty gas tank, barely able to put in 2 gallons of 93. A gas shortage in Texas from the storm. Check engine light shortly after. Gas cap tight. 150 miles to dealership. Any idea why? Safe to drive the 150 miles. So you've got a 2018 BRZ, 19,000 miles on it. Empty gas tank. You're barely able to put in 2 gallons of gas. Are you saying that the gas shortage is the reason you can't put more than 2 gallons in? Or are you saying that you physically can't get more than 2 gallons to pump into the tank? There are some issues with the, is it the purge solenoid or the vent solenoid? One or the other, where the gas tanks would not take fuel. Okay. Yeah, station was empty. Okay. I don't think you're going to make it 150 miles on 2 gallons, are you? What was the issue again? You just had a check engine light. Have you scanned it to see what the codes were? Or is Advanced Auto, AutoZone, any of those able to scan a 2018? I don't even know how new of a vehicle they can even scan anymore. If you haven't noticed any drivability issues, any misfires, anything that, like the check engine light came on and it automatically started running like crap, if it just came on for no apparent reason and it seems to be running perfectly fine and you need to get it to the dealership to have it checked, you should be good. If it's misfiring or running bad, or, if something changed when the check engine light came on rather than, the check engine light just magically popped on, you're of course going to have to find more fuel than 2 gallons to get 150 miles. But yeah, it depends on if you got a way to read the check in. If we knew what the check engine light was on, what code was on, I could advise you better on if I would chance driving a 150 mile trip or not. But like I said, if nothing changed but the check engine light came on, you shouldn't have an issue that would hurt anything to drive at 150 miles. Oh, man. All right. So, unfortunately, Taylor, we're going to have to cut it off here. Derek did get in the last question since this is now 10:40. Yeah, sorry, man. If we knew what your check engine light was on for, I could give you better advice. If you could get it to a parts store and get it scanned, that'd be even better. Something closer. That could be a good option if you have AAA. Not exactly sure how that all works. But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out, watching tonight. I think we had, 100 or so people. Yeah, I think we had 102 maximum. Hopefully y'all hit the thumbs up. Hopefully you had a fun time. Hopefully I answered your questions, as many of you I could answer. Sorry for some of my answers being long-winded and not letting me get to enough questions, but sometimes I ramble on about stuff. Sorry again about being a little scatterbrained. I got a lot going on in my head right now. As I said earlier in the live stream, where I had to go check on my brother's house. He's got a plumbing leak in his house, and my mom's got plumbing, all the sewage backing up in her house. So I got a ton of things on the brain right now other than thinking cars, diagnosis, and, you know, getting in that mindset. So thanks again, everybody, for hanging out. Hopefully I answered the majority of you guys' questions. If not, I'm sure we'll be doing some more live streams. I'd like to do them more regularly. As I said before, we were doing them, I know we went 2 months there without a live stream. Again, I'd like to do maybe once a month on Sundays, try to get back into that flow of things. Maybe the last Sunday of every month we can try to do it. Maybe 2 Sundays. I don't know. Maybe we can do it on a Friday or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I'll be sure to post beforehand on the community page when I'm planning to do a live stream, so you guys can be informed and get in here and ask your questions. I did not see Subaru Enduro or I think API cars, 2 other, I know, Subaru dealer techs. I would like to possibly get, do a live stream one night with a Subaru dealer tech so we can answer more questions quicker and possibly get more of you guys stuff figured out. Sure, but quit being a little naughty boy. He's sitting there, been sleeping on my lap, and now he's trying to get at my microphone again. But thanks, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you all have a good night and a good week ahead, and I will see you later. And Sherbert says bye as well.